Hello everyone! I recently watched a debate between the alt-light pundit skeptic Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad, who requires no introduction, and the illiterate and gish-galloping Twitch streamer Vaush, who occasionally takes part in carefully controlled debates with selected morons in order to assure his hubris and ego aren't broken, hence why he has refused to debate high-profile alt-right figures such as Mike Enoch and Eric Stryker, and even Marxist-Leninists like myself and Danky King, in a pathetic horseshoe theory attempt to equate reactionary Nazis with genuine leftists. I digress though. The purpose of this video is to show the moronic arguments for immigration that Vaush makes while also analyzing his terrible sourcing that contradicts his own claims and his terribly thin and dished out reasons for supporting immigration in the first place. So let's first begin with Vaush's main arguments for immigration.
But the consensus is that immigration boosts the economy in general, which means a higher minimum wage, which offsets the reduction of wages that are experienced in lower income segments of the economy, which means that the price of commodities is reduced, which means that an increased GDP and increased federal revenue means there's more money to go to social programs. It's a lot of stuff. It's a very complicated piece.
Here, Vaush completely places his idiocy on full display. First of all, an increase in GDP or a high GDP means absolutely nothing for the livelihood or wage growth of its citizens. One only has to look at your own country, Vaush, the United States, to see the difference. According to the US Department of Commerce, with the major exception of the housing bubble crash of 2008 and the dot-com bubble popping in 2001, real GDP growth since the 1990s has remained positive, peaking at just under 5% in '99. Of course, GDP is a measure of the actual size and productivity of an economy, not the well-being of its citizens. The bigger and more productive an economy, the higher the GDP. This growth and productivity directly coincides with the analysis from the Economic Policy Institute, demonstrating that from 1973 to 2014, while productivity has increased by about 72%, wages have increased only a grand total of 9%. Now, I don't know about you guys, but a 9% increase over a period of 41 years sounds like an incredible deal to me. Join Vaushi Boy on his adventure to do absolutely everything he can to fall into the same category as neoliberals and their pundits in the American political system. One only has to look at an actual socialist country, the DPRK for example, and analyze their constitution. Tell me, Vaush, why is it that while the US has a GDP of almost $20 trillion, and the DPRK has a GDP of around $40 billion from a 2015 estimate from the World CIA Factbook, the DPRK Constitution, Article 25, guarantees that, quote, the state shall provide all working people with every condition for obtaining food, clothing, and housing, and also there are no taxes in the DPRK. Vaush completely makes an unjustified claim that immigration drives up wages, and it doesn't even hold up to further scrutiny. No, immigration does not empirically leave people better off, and I use that in quotes. In fact, immigration is largely harmful to the general population. George J. Vorhas, a professor of economics and social policy at the Harvard Kennedy School, concedes that while, quote, the influx of immigration can potentially lead to a net good for the nation, increasing the total wealth of the population. However, he then goes on to say that, quote, Clinton ignores the hard truth that not everyone benefits when immigrants arrive. For many Americans, the influx of immigrants hurts their prospects significantly. Professor Vorhas goes on to say that, quote, both low and high skilled natives are affected by the influx of immigrants. But because of a disproportionate percentage of immigrants having few skills, it is low skilled workers, including many blacks and Hispanics, who have suffered most from this wage dip. The monetary loss is sizable. The typical high school dropout earns about $25,000 annually. According to census data, immigrants in the past 2 decades lacking a high school diploma have increased the size of the low skilled workforce by roughly 25%. As a result, the earnings of this particularly vulnerable group have dropped between $800 and $1,500 a year. In fact, there is actual direct, tangible evidence, and not from Vaush's mind, but from the real world, on how less immigrants actually benefits the workers in the US. We don't need to rely on complex statistical calculations to see the harm being done. A decade ago, Kreider Inc. was raided by immigrants. A decade ago, Kreider Inc., a chicken processing plant in Georgia, was raided by immigration agents, and 75% of its workforce vanished over a single weekend. Shortly after, Kreider placed an ad in the local newspaper announcing job openings at higher wages. Similarly, the flood of recent news reports on abuse of the H-1B visa program shows that firms will quickly dismiss their current tech force. when they find cheaper immigrant workers. And here we can see why immigration is loved so much from the rich, from Borjas again. Instead, it has changed how the pie is split, with the losers, the workers who compete with immigrants, many of those being low-skilled Americans, sending a roughly $500 billion check annually to the winners. Those winners are primarily their employers, and the immigrants themselves come out ahead too. Put bluntly, immigration turns out to just be another form of income redistribution. So congratulations, Vaush, you just went from strawmanning to having absolutely no idea what you're talking about. How morons actually give you money is beyond me. Now let's look at this supposed study from the Immigration Observatory that Vaush cites.
Incidentally, you were lying to me. 44% of people in the United Kingdom want to reduce immigration. According to this poll, migrationobservatory.ox.ac.uk, I can post it in the Zoom link if you would like. I don't know where you got your statistic from, but the vast majority of UK residents want to either keep immigration the same as it is or allow more of it.
And here we even have further proof of his own illiteracy. First of all, Vaush cites this study from the Immigration Observatory, which is completely contradictory to his claims about the population of the UK wanting immigration. One only has to, maybe read the article to find out. Existing evidence clearly shows that the levels of opposition to immigration in the UK are moderately high. Figure 1 shows that those who favored reducing the number of immigrants coming to Britain in 2019 was 44%. 22% say reduce a lot, and then a further 22% say reduce a little. A further 39% said that they would prefer the number of immigrants to stay about the same. Keep in mind that 39% is less than 44%, Vaush. While those favoring an increase were a minority of 17%. The same question asked in a face-to-face survey in 2013 found that 77% favor a reduction in numbers, suggesting that attitudes may have shifted somewhat. Now these attitude shifting is easily explained by this next part of the section. So here we can actually see that Vaush misrepresented the article intentionally. 44%, the majority of those polled, are not for immigration, but for limiting. Vaush is actually in the extreme minority of those polled, only 17% in terms of increasing immigration. So good luck with your democracy there, Mr. Citing Argumentum ad Populum. The decrease in the number of people opposing immigration, even acknowledged in the study itself, largely has to do with the fact that immigration was put in the back seat of discussion behind Brexit. Since the EU referendum in June 2016, however, immigration has been mentioned by far fewer people, falling from 48% in June 2016 to 13% in November 2019. As of November 2019, 62% mentioned this as a concern, with a further 42% mentioning the NHS. As respondents can name more than one issue if they want to, the total comes out to more than 100%. I mean, it's literally in the key points of the article, dude. Key point. Overall, views are divided in Britain. In 2019, around 39% thought that the level of immigration should stay the same, while 44% said that they would like immigration to be reduced. So you're just gish galloping and spamming articles and just completely misrepresenting them. It's hilarious, dude. Also, I guess Vaush doesn't know how sources work. He wasn't citing the Immigration Observatory, but a figure from the Social Investigation Center in the UK. I clicked the link that Immigration Observatory provided, and I was taken to this study. It's funny how both of what Vaush actually cites are against him. To quote the CSI, in the 2013 wave of the British social attitudes, a large face-to-face survey with the representative sample, 56% said that the number of immigrants in Britain should be reduced a lot, with a further 22% said that the number should be reduced a little. Less than 5% said that the number should be increased. Yeah, 5%. That sounds like a majority. Maybe in Eritrea. Similarly, in the 2015 wave of the British election study, another large face-to-face survey with the representative sample, 71% of respondents said that too many immigrants had been let into the country. Indeed, a sizable majority of the British population has been concerned about the number of immigrants in the country ever since the public opinion data was on the issue were first collected in the 1960s. In total, not only does immigration actually harm workers, but it's only benefiting the ruling class, and the majority of the UK were and still are opposed to immigration. So in total, don't do live debates, especially with someone like Vaush. Vaush is the king of just misrepresenting, of BS arguments. I mean, if you debate Vaush, like, you're going to debate Vaush's interpretation of socialism, well, What is Vaush's interpretation of socialism, an anarchist market socialist society? Like, you're literally just arguing with an idea that only exists in his head. I mean, this is the problem with a lot of these ANCOMs and leftcoms specifically is, it's an infantile disorder. It's an idea that really only exists in your head, and anything that's remotely tried is neglected purely for the sake of opportunism so that you can shoot down any new ideas. It's complete mockery, and I don't know how people give him this much money, but it really is due to pure liberalism.